All right, so chapter 16 is going to be an absolutely huge chapter. There is so many things that we need to cover. And this is one of those chapters that it really is a massive turning point. That not only will European history be not the same, but world history will be completely and totally changed. Not only because we have a lot of revolutions going on, we have the American Revolution, the French Revolution, which is going to cause potential change globally. But we also have the Haitian Revolution that is going to be the world's first successful slave revolt. We also are going to have the beginning of the end of the colonial empires that we started the year off with the Spanish American revolutions. I mean, there is just simply a lot going on. And these revolutions are going to be important not only for the change that they immediately cause and the change that they're going to help bring about in the future, but there's also going to be some isms, some ideas that are going to find their starting point within this revolution or within these revolutions. And that's going to include abolitionism rather, where we're going to end slavery. We're going to see nations and nationalism, and we're also going to see feminism coming up within this chapter as well. And those are all things that we will deal with pretty much for the rest of the year. So, to start off with, it's going to kind of start at a somewhat interesting point. And it starts off in 2010 with a Haitian earthquake that devastates this already impoverished nation. And oftentimes, Haiti doesn't really make it onto the front page of the news or even the first 5 minutes of any type of a news broadcast. But when the Haitian earthquake occurred, all of a sudden people start to ask some basic questions about Haiti, especially its legacy, its history, kind of understanding why Haiti is in the position that he was, or that it was rather. So this earthquake reawakened issues of the slave revolt that begins in 1804. And we'll get into this in a couple days, but the Haitian Revolution in general is going to be part of a wider set of upheavals where we're going to have the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, obviously, as well as, like I said before, the Latin American revolutions. And you're going to see that these revolutions all kind of build upon each other. They're all going to have at core a common set of ideas. So, for example, the Haitians are going to draw an inspiration from the American Revolution, and also the French revolutions as well. And then the Haitian Revolution, in turn, is going to help to shape the Latin American independence struggles as well. So we have this layering effect that is going on within these revolutions. And with the revolutions in a global context, from the early 18th to the middle of the 19th century, you have political and social upheaval occurring in many parts of the world. And again, this is going to include all these revolutions that we're going to talk about, or rather, all these political revolutions. And then there's also going to be some social, cultural, and economic revolutions with the Industrial Revolution that we'll deal with in the next chapter. The Atlantic revolutions in general are going to take place in this wider framework. They're not going to be occurring like they're bubbles. Even though they are occurring in a wider framework, these revolutions are very distinctive. Um, the revolutions are going to be closely linked to one another. The revolutionaries are going to provide advice and encouragement to one another. There's going to be a series of letters that will be written back and forth, and you'll see that revolutionaries in each of these places will be very in tune to the other revolutions that are going on around them. And like I said before, they all share a common set of ideas, and this is going to be important. So you want to put a star here by B underneath number 2, and then we have a note, and it's kind of a beefy note, but you have a bunch of space here. Again, even though your page looks different than my page, you have a bunch of space here that's going to be to the right there of that list underneath D. So you should be able to fit this in. But next to B underneath number 2, you want to put down here that these grew out of the European Enlightenment and the notion that it is possible to engineer and improve political and social life with the core idea, and you want to put these next two words in quotes, of popular sovereignty. And sovereignty is SOVEREIGNTY, I think. Remember, I can't spell well. Continuing on with a note, which is the authority to govern, comes from the people. All of these revolutions are going to have an absolutely immense global impact. Just looking at the list that is going to be occurring here, we see these in abolitionism, we see this in the extension of the right to vote, of constitutions, of greater equality for women, of nationalism, and also in general, just ideas of equality. So you want to put, because these guys are definitely really important for you to get, so you want to put a big star here by this list. And almost all of these will cover within the chapter, and we'll definitely be referencing back to them in other cases. There is one exception. There is one thing that we also need to add here below this list, and you want to put a star by, and you're just going to put it again. Like I said, you want to put it at the bottom of the page underneath 6D, and put a star by this note. And you want to put, please, except in Haiti, the main beneficiaries of the revolutions were middle class white males. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later on.